"You're trespassing. You know that?" The voice, sharp as a broken piece of glass, sliced through the morning calm. I paused, my fishing line still, the cool, humid air thick with the scent of pine and fresh water. I turned, squinting against the sun's glare reflecting off the lake. Standing there on my dock, not 10 feet from me, was the new neighbor, Carol. She wore a too-perfect sun hat and a scowl that seemed permanently etched into her face, and it was barely past 9 in the morning. She claimed to own the lake, my dock, and apparently, the very air I was breathing. What in the world was she talking about? I sighed, a long, weary exhalation that felt like a lifetime of conflict boiling over in a single breath. The water lapped gently against the pilings, a soft, soothing rhythm that did absolutely nothing to calm the fire now starting to ignite in my chest. Carol had only lived here for 3 weeks, and already, she'd declared herself the Homeowners Association Empress, sending out a flurry of passive-aggressive emails about lawn decor and garbage can placement. I thought it was just her way of settling in, a bizarre territorial ritual. But this was a whole new level of absurd. She stood with her hands on her hips, a small, laminated sign dangling from her perfectly manicured fingers. "I'm sorry. I think you're mistaken," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "This is my property. I built this dock myself." She didn't even blink. "The lake is for members of the Homeowners Association only. And since you've been deemed a disruptive element by the Homeowners Association Board, your privileges have been revoked." My blood ran cold. The board she was talking about was her, and her poor, henpecked husband, a man I'd seen mowing the lawn with the expression of a hostage. I wanted to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all, but the anger was a bitter taste in my mouth, like old coffee grounds. How could she even think this was okay? The day before, I'd heard her shouting at the Millers, the kindest old couple who lived 3 houses down, for putting out a bird feeder. A bird feeder. That sweet, elderly Mrs. Miller had looked so crestfallen, her shoulders slumping as she took down the small wooden feeder her grandson had made for her. The thought of that made my jaw clench. This wasn't just about my dock. It was about her trying to control every ounce of joy and freedom on this little slice of heaven we called home. "Look, Carol, that's not how any of this works," I stated, my voice losing its calm edge. "The lake is a public waterway. I have a deed that shows my property line goes right to the water's edge. This dock is legally mine." She sneered. "I'm done discussing this. This is your final warning." With a flourish, she pulled out a zip tie and fastened her pathetic little sign to one of my dock posts. It read in blocky letters, "Private Property Homeowners Association Lakefront Access Revoked." My whole body went tight. The quiet gurgle of the lake seemed to mock me now. The peaceful morning was gone, replaced by the suffocating feeling of being wronged, of being trespassed on, of being told I couldn't exist on my own land. I walked back to the house, the planks of my dock groaning under my feet. With every step, a knot tightened in my stomach. The audacity, the sheer, unadulterated arrogance of it all. I had an urge to rip the sign down and throw it into the lake. But I knew that's exactly what she wanted. A reaction. Something she could escalate. Something she could use to report me to her imaginary board. I pulled out my phone and took a dozen pictures of her sign, of the dock, and then of my deed. A plan was forming in my mind. A slow, methodical burn that felt a lot less like a fiery rage and a lot more like cold, hard vengeance. I got in my truck, the engine roaring to life with a satisfying rumble, and drove straight to the county sheriff's office. The sheriff, a man named Deputy Reynolds, looked like a character straight out of an old western. He had a deep, calming voice and a face weathered by years of dealing with everything from cattle rustling to petty squabbles. He listened patiently as I recounted the tale of the Homeowners Association tyrant and her self-proclaimed lake ownership. He looked at my pictures of the sign, his brow furrowed in a way that was more curious than concerned. "So, let me get this straight," he said, leaning back in his chair. "This woman, Ms. Carol Peterson, put up a sign on your private dock claiming she owns the lake and that you're no longer allowed to use it?" I nodded, the absurdity of it feeling even greater when said out loud. "That's about the size of it, Deputy." He gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Well, that there's a problem. A big one. Harassment, trespassing, and what she's doing is called a public nuisance." A tiny flame of hope flickered inside me. "I'll go talk to her. She's new. Maybe she just doesn't know any better." I wanted to shout, "No, she knows better. She just doesn't care." But I held my tongue. I trusted him. He seemed to get it. When the sheriff's cruiser pulled up to my driveway, I was already waiting, standing on my lawn with my arms crossed. A silent, defiant sentry. Carol was on her front porch, watering her hydrangeas with a smug smile. Her smile disappeared the moment she saw the sheriff. Her eyes widened, her face a mask of shocked confusion. She set the watering can down with a thud. "Is everything all right, officer?" she asked, her voice suddenly saccharine sweet. The sheriff gestured towards me. "Ma'am, we've had a complaint." Her gaze flickered to me, then back to him, her eyes narrowing. "A complaint? I can assure you there's been some kind of mistake. I am the head of the Homeowners Association, and this man has been—" "Ma'am," the sheriff interrupted, his voice cutting through her monologue like a sharp knife. "The lake is a public waterway. Your neighbor's property line extends to the water. This dock is his private property. You have no jurisdiction here. In fact, by putting up that sign and harassing him and other neighbors, you've broken several laws." His words were calm, but they carried the weight of the law, of 100 years of county history. The air went dead silent. Carol's jaw went slack. The smugness drained from her face, leaving behind a blank, hollow stare. I watched the realization dawn on her, slow and painful. Her little world of power and control was crumbling around her. She was a paper tiger. The sheriff pointed to my dock. "I suggest you remove that sign immediately, and let this be the last time you harass your neighbors, or we'll be back to discuss this in a courtroom." He tipped his hat to me and got back in his car, leaving a shell-shocked Carol staring at her hydrangeas as if they were alien life forms. I walked to my dock. The same boards, the same water, the same sun. But it felt different now. The world felt right again. I pulled the zip tie cutter from my pocket and snipped the stupid sign off my post, the plastic snapping with a satisfying ping. I held the flimsy piece of plastic in my hand. It was nothing. And that's what she was, too. A whole lot of noise for absolutely nothing. I took a deep breath, the air clean and free of conflict, and cast my line back into the water. Sometimes, you don't need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes, you just need to let justice run its quiet, inevitable course. The lake was mine, and it was a reminder that no matter how loud the bullies get, the truth and the law will always have the final say.